Ever wondered where the terrifying monsters that haunt your nightmares actually came from? Forget what you've seen in the movies. The real stories behind creatures like vampires, werewolves, and sirens are far more complex, and frankly, way more interesting. Today, we're diving deep into the dusty pages of history and mythology to uncover the true origins of the world's most famous monsters. Get ready, because the truth is often stranger than fiction. Let's start with a classic, the vampire. When you think vampire, you probably picture Dracula, right? A charming, caped aristocrat from Transylvania. But the modern vampire is a far cry from its ancient ancestors. Beliefs in blood-sucking, undead creatures are found in nearly every culture, long before Bram Stoker ever put pen to paper. In ancient Mesopotamia, there were tales of the Lamashtu, demonic female figures who preyed on infants. The ancient Greeks feared the Empusa, a shape-shifting female demon with a bronze leg who would seduce and devour young men. But the vampire myth as we know it really took root in Eastern Europe, particularly during the 18th century. This was a time when science was still battling superstition. When bodies were exhumed and found to be bloated, with blood around the mouth, people didn't understand the natural process of decomposition. They saw it as proof that the dead were rising from their graves to feed on the living. These vampires weren't suave noblemen. They were shambling, plague-ridden corpses, often described as bloated and ruddy-faced. The fear was so intense that entire villages would engage in vampire hunting panics, staking corpses and performing rituals to keep the dead from rising. So, the original vampire wasn't a tragic romantic figure, but a terrifying symbol of disease and the fear of the unknown. Next up, the werewolf. The idea of a human transforming into a wolf is an ancient and powerful one, tapping into our primal fear of the beast within. One of the earliest accounts comes from Greek mythology, with the story of King Lycaon of Arcadia. To test the omniscience of Zeus, Lycaon served the god a meal made from the remains of his own son. As punishment for this horrific act, an enraged Zeus transformed Lycaon into a ravenous wolf. This story sets the tone for many werewolf legends. The transformation is often a divine curse, a punishment for some terrible transgression. In medieval Europe, the line between werewolves and real wolves blurred. With wolves being a genuine threat to livestock and people, it was then a huge leap for a frightened populace to believe that some of these predators were actually men in disguise. Werewolf trials became common, much like the witch trials. People, often outcasts or those suffering from mental illness, were accused of lycanthropy. They would confess under torture to making pacts with the devil, using magic ointments to transform, and committing unspeakable acts as wolves. Unlike the modern idea of a bite spreading the curse, historical werewolfism was often seen as a willing pact with evil or a divine punishment. It was about the darkness within humanity, not an external infection. Now, let's sail into treacherous waters and talk about sirens. In modern pop culture, sirens are often depicted as beautiful, seductive mermaids, luring sailors to their doom with their enchanting songs. But if you go back to the original Greek myths, you'll find a very different creature. In Homer's Odyssey, the sirens were not fish-tailed beauties. They were bird-woman hybrids, with the heads and torsos of women, but the feathers and talons of birds. They lived on a rocky island, and their song wasn't just beautiful, it was a promise of knowledge. They sang of the past and the future, tempting sailors not just with desire, but with a thirst for forbidden wisdom. The danger was that anyone who heard their song would be so mesmerized that they would forget everything, eating, drinking, steering their ship, and waste away on the shores of the Sirens' Island, which was littered with the bones of their victims. The transformation from bird-woman to mermaid likely happened over centuries, as maritime cultures blended Greek myths with their own tales of water spirits. Let's move from the sea to the labyrinth and face the Minotaur. The story is a famous one. A creature with the body of a man and the head of a bull, locked away in a maze on the island of Crete. This monster was the offspring of Queen Pasiphae and a magnificent white bull. To hide this monstrous secret, King Minos had the master inventor Daedalus construct the labyrinth. Every year, Athens was forced to send 7 young men and 7 young women as tribute to be devoured by the Minotaur, until the hero Theseus arrived to slay the beast. But what's the truth behind this myth? Many historians and archaeologists believe the Minotaur legend is a mythological echo of a real historical power dynamic. During the Bronze Age, the Minoan civilization on Crete was a dominant naval power. The mainland Greeks, particularly the Mycenaeans in Athens, may have been a vassal state, forced to pay tribute to Crete. The bull was a sacred and powerful symbol in Minoan culture, seen everywhere in their art and religious rituals, including bull-leaping ceremonies. So, the myth of a bull-headed man devouring Athenian youths could be a powerful piece of political propaganda, representing the oppressive power of Crete demanding tribute from a subjugated Athens. The labyrinth itself might be a stylized memory of the vast, complex palace at Knossos, the heart of the Minoan civilization. Finally, let's unwrap the mystery of the mummy. When we think of mummies in horror, we picture a reanimated, bandaged corpse, lurching forward with a vengeful curse. This concept was largely born from the Egyptomania that swept the Western world in the 19th and early 20th centuries, following archaeological discoveries in Egypt. The opening of King Tut's tomb in 1922, followed by a series of mysterious deaths among the excavation team, fueled the sensationalist idea of the Pharaoh's curse. This was perfect fodder for Hollywood, giving us the classic mummy monster. But for the ancient Egyptians, mummification was the complete opposite of a curse. It was a sacred, vital process. They believed that preserving the body was essential for the soul to navigate the afterlife and be reborn. A well-preserved body was a vessel for the Ka and Ba, parts of the soul, to recognize and return to. Far from being a source of terror, a mummy was a symbol of hope, eternal life, and rebirth. The idea of it rising to wreak havoc would have been horrifying to an ancient Egyptian, not because it was a monster, but because it would mean the sacred journey of the deceased had been horribly desecrated. The monster mummy is a purely modern invention, born from a colonial-era misunderstanding and fascination with a culture that was, to them, mysterious and exotic. From plague victims to political propaganda, the true stories of these monsters reveal so much about the societies that created them. They are reflections of our deepest fears, disease, our own inner darkness, the power of nature, and the oppression of others. The next time you watch a horror movie, remember the long, strange, and fascinating history behind the creature on your screen. What started as a way to explain the world has become our favorite way to be scared by it. Thanks for joining me on this mythological deep dive. If you enjoyed uncovering these truths, hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys into the past. Let me know in the comments which monster's true story surprised you the most. Until next time, stay curious.